So India is, the largest democracy in Asia. It has its second most populous country. What unique things can India do to counter the Chinese Communist Party that, like, the United States might not be able to?
Well, one of the things that both the countries, India and China, actually have in common is that both have excessive raw materials. I would say labor that costs quite less. So to hit the country, to hit China in a manner where they actually bleed a lot of cash is to actually have companies, bigger multinational companies in Silicon Valley, set up their operations in India, which will definitely shift, a great power trend in the coming years.
I think that's a really interesting point. It goes back to, what you said about earlier about banning these apps, that was a huge economic hit when suddenly India banned all of these different apps. And if, like, India and maybe Taiwan too, since they make the best semiconductors, if they became truly global international economic powerhouses, that would be a devastating blow to the Chinese Communist Party. If you cut out their money, everything else collapses.
Right. That is one particular step. Let's see if that particular thing happens or not, because as it sounds so simple being said, it is, it has a lot of economic repercussions for the bigger companies as well. So let's wait and watch what happens.
Yeah. What do you think are some of the barriers to that, greater focus on India and Taiwan?
Some of the greater barriers is that China will still be a lot more economical than what India is. Even if India has second most largest population in the whole world, it does not matter about that particular fact. Now, if I'll just tell you a simple example, if I'll take an example of a simple company over here, that if I order some, I would say, bolts, a company that is producing screws and nuts and bolts, if I produce a large order of it, probably Indian company would take 6 months to deliver that particular thing, whereas China would deliver it in a week and at a fraction of a cost as well. So majority of the Indian companies are also getting their raw materials from China, relabeling them and selling it again in India and abroad as well. So these kind of things will always be there, and a businessman will always see profits rather than, I would say, what happens. He'll be less, I would say, occupied by who's stealing my data or not.
Is that also just because China has built up its infrastructure, roads and rails and shipping ports to the degree that it just facilitates much faster trade? Or is there something else going on?
Well, as I said, that is also one of the reasons that, yes, it can facilitate trade in I would say, in a faster manner. But the thing is that each and everything that, in the whole world, whenever we're talking about any particular business, we'll see that companies would always, have their operations in China because it is proving them, a lot beneficial in a very, very less economical way. And the production in they are able to produce is a lot higher in a very less time. That is one of the reasons.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of advantages to. You think maybe India should adopt the policies of like slave labor and no environmental standards? Maybe that would help.
Well, I don't think so that this would be very helpful in India, that providing slave labor or something like that. This is
just to be clear, I was joking. I think it didn't come across.
Yeah, that was. I miss Shelley.
Yeah, no, Shelley was going to be here, but she couldn't make it today. She usually will give me a look when I'm making a horrible joke. But in this case, there was no one to do that. And
fortunately, maybe someday the AI can predict when you're going to make a horrible joke and just like give you a little shock ahead of time.
Oh, wow, that would be great. It'd be like pre-crime, but for my bad jokes.
For bad jokes. I support this technology.
Well, yes, you support it now until you see it applied to you.
I don't have bad jokes.
Well, that's what you think now. See, this and this kind of speaks to the heart of this whole thing, which is it doesn't affect me now. I just, need this for this one purpose, for example, to shock Matt so he stops making bad jokes. But ultimately, it's going to affect you. It's going to affect Shelley. It's going to affect you. It's going to affect everyone. And we're all going to get shocked before making bad jokes.
And I accept that if it stops you.
Okay, well, that's a deal with the devil. But anyway, I think my point was that, it's very hard for India to compete with slave labor and, cheap electricity that comes at the expense of the environment. Because if India wants to be true to its principles, you just can't do that sort of thing to people.
That was actually a good point. You should have phrased it like that from the first.
India is not I would say it is not an authoritarian type of, it does not have an authoritarian type of government. So that speaks a lot about its, culture, and it's a true democracy.
So do you think it's a weakness? Like, is democracy weaker than its Chinese-style authoritarianism?
No, it is not a weakness, actually. No, it is not a weakness. I think democracy is a beautiful thing, where you have so many religions, so many cultures, and all of them are living under one umbrella. So I think it is a very positive thing, actually. If we cannot just relate to one particular thing, that in certain stance that we cannot surpass a particular country, then democracy is a weakness. I don't think that point should be taken into account.
Now, is there something that individuals can do? People watching this are bound to be as terrified as I have been for the last hour. What can an individual living in India or in the United States or Europe do now that they realize that these Chinese apps are tracking everyone, but even after you delete the apps, they're tracking, governments and private corporations are buying up this data. Like, what can individuals do to free themselves from this now before governments get off their butts and take action?
Well, I think, the only way is that possibly the government should also step in and try to actually, teach its country about which particular things are actually good and which particular things are harmful. They should actually, tell that what is going on with this particular application. And because the thing is that people always listen to, I would say, listen to a particular perception where they say, okay, I'm losing at this particular part. So people should get educated, and the only way they'll be getting educated is with the help of the government, and not by the likes of any particular individual. The government needs to step in. Government needs to add this particular thing as a subject in the curriculum. So I think many of the people would get educated at an early front, at an early age. That will help a lot.
I mean, that sounds good, but my experience living in the United States of America over the last 5 years is that half the country does not listen to the government at any particular time.
Yes, you're right. What I mean to say is that, when the government steps in and puts this particular thing as a curriculum in, your education. So that is when the students, or when the younger generation is going to schools, or younger generation is going to universities, they would learn it over there. So they'll think twice before actually installing one of these particular apps, when they know that their data, their pictures, their messages are getting stolen. So I think it'll help a lot. I don't say that it'll completely eradicate the problem, but yes, it'll definitely help a lot.
Well, I guess in the near term, what people can do is share this interview with their friends and family. That's the fastest way to get people educated about what's going on. Thank you very much for joining us today. This was one of the more horrifying podcasts we've done.
Oh yeah, no, I'm living in fear now.
So it was a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you so much, Matt. Thanks
Definitely.
for having.
You know, really, like listening to that podcast, like I'm reminded of like all the old sci-fi stories from like the 50s and 60s about, you know, a computer god ruling a civilization. It really doesn't seem so far-fetched anymore.
I know. I kind of almost want to now write like a sci-fi book or movie script about what the future is going to be like when the Chinese Communist Party's new world order with respect to data is basically taken over our lives. And like you'll have like the group of resistance will be the people who use flip phones.
I mean, we got to be Luddites. They had the right idea. Smash every piece of technology.
Every piece of technology.
Yeah.
But having my iPhone is so convenient, Chris. Can we
not
just
that.
keep the one thing?
We keep the iPhones and the cameras and the mics and the head.
That's true. We'll definitely need all of this.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if we're going to be Cassandra screaming into the void, we at least need our YouTube channel to scream into the void through.
Yeah. So considering doing these shows, we have absolutely no free time. How are you going to write that sci-fi story and movie?
Oh, yeah. No, I don't think I am.
Much better just to watch the podcast and share it with your friends and family.
Exactly.
And in particular, we also have China Uncensored, our main show, on a specific Hindi channel as well. You know, get to the Indian audience. And so it offers Hindi translations with voiceovers for our episodes. We'll put the link to that below. This podcast should also be on that channel as well. So definitely check it out.